Hello, I'm Lois Letchford, author of the book Reverse to Memoir and a literacy problem solver, and talking about when children fail first grade, they suffer academically, socially and emotionally, and the effort to turn that around is huge. And that's what I'm here to do, turn our students around so that they can be successful. And I tell the story of my son Nicholas, who failed first grade, now holds a PhD from Oxford and works as a contractor for the World Health Organization. And we have just spent 2.5 weeks in Egypt with Nicholas because of him and his work and his love of learning, which was an integral part of learning letters and sounds. The letters and sounds for him were so difficult to learn, but when we put them in a context and put them in a poem, it made a world of difference. Poetry is short and repetitive, and you line the brain with language with poetry. You hear the rhyming words. You're doing all the phonemic awareness material in the context of a poem. And on top of that, you have content and questions. Content and questions is where we are today. Content. I've talked about the books that we had listened to or we read as a child when Nicholas was a child. And I talked about Captain Cook, the last of the great explorers, and this book, I Wish I'd Sailed with Captain Cook. And Captain Cook led us to discuss Arachnocenes. Now, how did Arachnocenes fit into this world? And the other one that I have here is Cosmology by Maps from the Ptolemy's Geography. These two people are connected. Christopher Columbus came before Captain Cook and was the first person that we actually know who went across the Atlantic Ocean and came back and told of his discoveries. Irrespective of what we think of him, that's what happened, that's what he did. The map that he had, his latest map, was over 1,000 years old and drawn by this man, Ptolemy. He had published this book in 2040 AD, or around that time. And this was the book that got Nicholas in love with mapping. And what I didn't know about Nicholas was his enormous capacity for spatial awareness. And this is the Ptolemy map that Nicholas would drool over. Ptolemy drew this map as librarian at Alexandria, 240 AD. He never left the shores of Alexandria, and he spoke to traders, spoke to sailors, and then turned around and drew his map. Now, what's the problem? Ptolemy drew the world he knew, and he didn't recognize there was another continent between Europe and Asia, going around the Atlantic Ocean. So he just drew the world, and he said the world is this big. So Columbus got on his map and said, I can do that. I can go from Portugal across to the East Indies. It's not that far. On this map, it's not that far. Except this guy, Arachnocenes, had in about 360, 350 AD, had calculated the size of the Earth. How did he do it? And he calculated the size of the Earth to be very close to what we know the Earth to be. And Columbus said, no, he's wrong. I'll go with Ptolemy. And in that way, Columbus underestimated the length that his journey took. And he underestimated the globe and all that he had to do. Nicholas and I both drooled over the decisions all of these people had to make with limited technology. And reading this book gives an insight into mathematics and science and the level of knowledge these people had way back before it was all lost when the Alexandrian Library was destroyed. It was destroyed by numerous people, and it was destroyed by fear of knowledge. So, and then you know, when you're doing these things, you're having children question. The questions are what lead to a place where children say, what's this about? And why are these letters and sounds so important? They're unconscious, but when we bring them to the forefront, the learning becomes much easier, much more enlightening, and they say, I want to know more. And of all the things I do, I want my students to say, I want to know more. I want to sit at your table and enjoy learning. Letters and sounds come along for the ride. And the statement that sticks in my mind comes from Professor Susan Newman in her paper. It says, content is the star performer. Decoding is the supporting act. Think about that. Content is the star performer. Decoding is the supporting act. So Natalie Wexler and Susan Newman are two famous people who always promote we must use content to teach children to read at all levels. Thank you. Hit like, hit subscribe, and share this journey with others.